What's going on, YouTube? It's about that time where we reevaluate Diluc and his general power level. Obviously, with his new skin, he got a buff. Maybe not to damage, but definitely to drift. And all of a sudden, everyone's a Diluc main. Well, that is, unless you think he's bad, which a lot of people do. I personally don't believe Diluc to be bad, though. There's often a big misconception about value in the Genshin community. When a new character power creeps an old one, for instance Hu Tao with Diluc, the old one doesn't instantly become bad. Maybe they become less valuable to build than before because a better option exists, but being less valuable doesn't necessarily wipe the usability of that character from existence. It's definitely not wrong to say that Diluc was less played than at the start of the game, at least before his skin came out, or that he's not the top pyro damage dealer. But is he not worth investing in? Oftentimes there's many different interpretations of Diluc that float around, like he's not free to play friendly, or his damage is bad. But most of this is due to an extended game of telephone. One person says Diluc sucks, and somehow months down the line that becomes Diluc is the second worst pyro DPS and not worth building ever simply because Xiangling exists for free. Don't get me wrong, I get it. We're all about getting the most bang for your buck on investment. Genshin Impact is a gacha game after all, home to one of the most predatory monetization schemes in all of gaming history. Of course we're gonna want to use our resources right, but is it really so wrong to use your resources towards Diluc? He does still deal solid damage with a free-to-play weapon. It's not Ganyu or Hu Tao damage, but it's still pretty dang high. Well, with enemies that teleport away from you, or just simply leave the battlefield for a time, having standard movement or short-range melee attacks can be pretty rough. And that's definitely made him less fun to play for some players, especially when characters like Hu Tao, Yoimiya, Ayaka, and Ganyu exist, who all have some sort of ranged attacks or enhanced movement. One major reason that Diluc may not be played as much is because he can be frustrating in the newer content where there are those sorts of enemies that waste your time and stall. And especially with a character that isn't as optimal as your other options, you can't afford to waste too much time. But players use suboptimal characters to clear Abyss all the time. You have players clearing with off-meta units like Yanfei, Noelle, and that new character Xinyan. If you ask players who spend a lot of time optimizing, they may tell you that all of these units are pretty bad. But bad is compared to the highest bar. Granted, I don't particularly like using those characters for the harder content that is Abyss, but the point is that if you're aware of how to play the game at a higher level, you can clear with many different suboptimal characters on the roster. So now imagine a character that's actually pretty decent, still going at that content. Surely they'd have an easier time with it than a character like Xinyan, right? Well, of course it depends on the content, but the point is that Diluc is still significantly better than many other units in the Genshin roster. Not Hu Tao, sure, but still pretty good nonetheless. There's other reasons that people don't play Diluc though. Misconceptions about his power level aside, many players in the community will argue that Diluc's gameplay is stale or boring, and that's completely fair. At the end of the day, it's just swinging a big heavy sword. That's really not so different from many of the other characters in the game though. At the end of the day, what characters are boring is just preference, and so maybe a ton of players just think he's a boring character to play, and that's pretty valid. Lots of Genshin players won't touch Ganyu for the same reason. But just to be clear, similarly to how you can play other characters in different ways than just auto attack spam, there's actually a variety to Diluc's gameplay depending on both the content and the team you're running. For example, if you run C6 Bennett, you may have to pay closer attention to when you use your skill to maximize damage. And if you're lazy like me, you can even use Yunjin to make sure that your normal attacks are all dealing high damage, so that way when you miss a vaporize on his skill, you're not actually missing that much. Is it suboptimal? Well, yeah, but even with a free-to-play weapon, I was able to clear with that team. Everything gets carried by supports in this game anyways. If you're just optimizing, that's one thing, but if you have the slightest idea of what you're doing in Genshin Impact, then you can get away with being cheesy every once in a while. And that concept really shows in Diluc's flexibility too, since you can play him in mono pyro teams, overvape teams with Fischl, and in general with lots of 4-star Genshin characters. And he works well with a lot of 5 stars too. Overall, Diluc is a lot more flexible than people give him credit for. And again, even if his maximum damage output is not the same as a top unit, that doesn't mean that he's not a strong unit to begin with. But okay, regardless of whether or not you think Diluc is boring or weak, there's one major thing that contributes to the Diluc slander echo chamber. As Genshin Impact has gotten older, there have been tons of new characters released, and many of them have interesting new playstyles that are meant to counter the new content. Plus, a lot of people just get excited when there's a new character to play around with in the Abyss. A large portion of the reason Diluc sees less play is because there's just new characters in the game. Diluc is a standard 5-star character. Some players even got him in their very first Genshin 10 pull. He's just old, not canonically, but you know, in the game. But not so old that he's not functional. situational. Sure, the Spiral Abyss has higher damage checks than it used to, but Diluc was a powerful DPS from the start. In fact, he was stronger than most other options at the beginning of the game, and as a result, his damage can still keep up even without max investment, because he's a pyro unit that can take advantage of Vaporize with decent attack and scalings. With Sumeru on the horizon and Dendro reactions coming very soon, every element, except Geo, is getting buffed in some way. There's going to be a lot of pyro units whose focus isn't damage dealing, who will be able to see more play through the burning reaction. And Diluc's kit will also likely complement Dendro reactions as well. His burst sweeps wide, and even if we just look at the surface level of reactions with Dendro burning, he'll be able to deal more damage over time. It's also likely that a lot of the newer enemies will be susceptible to pyro as well, just because, you know, plant-based monsters, Dendro shields, and even just the environment will make it stronger. You may see this as a Hu Tao Xiangling buff, but let's not forget that other pyro characters exist and will also be receiving buffs as well. You may not like Diluc's playstyle, or maybe you just don't really care for his damage output despite it being pretty good at high talent levels. And that's fine. Not everybody has to like every single character. Disliking a character doesn't instantly mean that character is bad though. Plenty of people dislike Kokomi at the start even though she never even had real problems to begin with. Echo chambers happen everywhere in the Genshin community, and with newer releases from Inazuma, you've been able to see the mark that those have on newer units. Yoimiya, Kokomi, and Yai's first banner sales were a disaster, and though the fact is that they were sandwiched between great units, that fact isn't the whole reason their banners didn't perform well. One negative opinion in the Genshin community's long game of telephone can be wildly spun into misinformation, which is why a lot of the time you have to just take a look for yourself and make an informed opinion. That way you can see objectively whether or not a character is good or bad in the meta. And to be clear, there's many great sources for this. You can find all sorts of theory crafting networks that will show you exactly how much damage Diluc can do proportionately to other characters. And let me tell you, if a character is bad or doesn't seem good right off the bat at the very least, no group of people will push harder for that character than the mains network for that specific character. Let's be real, even the Kokomi mains Discord, most of the people theory crafting there knew that Kokomi was gonna be good beforehand. It was just some online opinions that got a little bit too widespread that sort of ruined everyone's perception of the character. In Diluc's case, it's simply because he's an older unit, Xiangling is free, and Hu Tao is better. Not necessarily because Diluc's damage isn't good enough. At the end of the day, the biggest misconception about Diluc is that he fell off, and that he's not a good unit anymore. Just because Xiangling and Hu Tao exist doesn't mean that Diluc is bad. You could make the argument that he's not worth investing in as much as Xiangling, and that's fair, but Genshin Impact is a long-term game anyways. It's not like you're never going to invest in units other than meta ones, because eventually you're going to have all the meta units capped out anyways. If you're min-maxing your account, you'd be right to prioritize characters like Hu Tao, Xiangling, Ayaka, and other top damage dealers as your main carry, because they're either more flexible or more efficient damage per resource that you spend. But don't let the year-long game of telephone dissuade you from building Diluc, because at the end of the day, he's a solid pyro DPS, and you may find that you enjoy playing him, especially now that he's dripped out. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you're playing Diluc nowadays, let me know down in the comments below. I mean, now that he's got a skin, I expect a lot more people to be playing him, and I'm sure we'll find out very, very soon. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It tells YouTube that the video doesn't suck, and it really helps me out. I also go live a few days a week at twitch.tv/Braxophone, so if you want to come over and hang out, feel free. Our community over there is awesome. Until then, I'll catch you next time.